sleep in my bedroom at night. And for whatever reason, I would just randomly wake up, and there would be 3 beings come out of my wardrobe, which would be in the far corner of my bedroom. And that would basically scare the hell out of me. So I would basically hide under my covers. And then I'd peek out of my covers to the left. And there were 3, I tend to remember them as being female looking figures.
Right.
They were glowing like a golden colour.
Today we've got Robert with us. He's going to tell us about some of his encounters that he had. Now, Robert wrote in to us a couple of weeks ago, and we read out his encounter on I think it's the one me and you did, Alan, on Orbs and Opinions Part 1. We read out a couple of listener stories, and it was about a couple of orbs that he'd seen.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? In Rendlesham Forest. Anyway, he got back in touch with us. And we've had a few hours chatting over the last 3-4 days. And so we're just going to go from there. And then Robert's going to tell us everything that's happened to him from day one, pretty much. So, hello, Robert.
Hello, chaps. How you doing? Yeah. So, well, it all started for me. I was 4. Between 4 and 5, these incidents happened. In my bedroom, always at night, and I would always wake up before they happened. So that's something I really want to get across, that they weren't dreams. And so what would happen would be there would be 3 beings, yellow, golden. I remember telling my mum they were glowing. And the moment they entered my room, I would hide under the covers, and then pluck up the guts, basically, to have a peek to see if they were still there. And they would be standing to the left-hand side of me, beside my bed. I used to go back under the covers, face the wall on the other side, and one would come, I'd peek, and there would be one standing here. So I was basically surrounded.
Right.
Yeah, and
so was it always 3?
Well, this is the thing. It was only the first time I saw the beings. Every time after that, I went without there having to be anybody there. That's something which it's almost like they come to, in my opinion, they come to just see that you are what they want, or it's I don't, so yeah, and so I'd stay under the covers, absolutely petrified, hiding, basically. And then what would happen there would be this noise, almost like what I would say was almost say it was a cross between a whirling sound. I'll do an impression of it. It went sort of like woo, woo.
Magnetic sound.
Sound.
Yeah.
And it started softly to start with.
Yeah.
And it just built up deeper and deeper, gradually and gradually. It's almost like a crescendo of just too much. Right. And I can tell you, it used to go through every part of you, sort of thing. Every part of your body. And then, literally, the very next thing I would remember would be coming round, standing up, and as you open your eyes or as you become conscious, I remember looking slightly to my right, and I could see two beings standing slightly at an angle in front of me.
Yeah.
And as I remember, I don't, how I remember it, I wasn't even able to move, or I could just move my eyes, and I was looking up their feet and up their legs. And
Yeah.
the moment I got up to about their waist height, I got the message that I was about to go. And
Right.
I literally, as you know you're going to go, you go out of the side of what I presume must have been a craft or something, because the height that I fell from, you know, it wasn't like falling out of a tree or something. It was from a great height.
Really?
And at some point, and at some point on the way back, and this happened every time it happened, on the way back, there's almost like a swap over where you see yourself standing on the ground.
Yeah.
Like your physical body.
Yeah.
Even though I should have been in bed in my pajamas, you could see yourself. I could remember the trousers I was wearing, the jumper, everything I was wearing. And then there's a point where, obviously, I just said you swap round to your consciousness, then goes back to the body standing there on the ground. The weirdest part about it is that as soon as you do swap over to being yourself again, all around you and coming down, I remember there being these like crystals and like what I used to call them gems to my mum, because it was the only word that I could associate. And I remember the sheer panic of these things falling around me. And then at that stage, then you would be screaming in bed. You would be I'd wake up feeling like I'd been in a fight or something. You know, you'd be so pumped up, through fear. I would say is the only way you can really explain it. Then only at that point would my mum come in the room and hear me. You know, when this is the strange thing. Whenever it happens, you just can't you can't scream or shout or anything. This noise is like an all-encompassing noise that almost paralyzes you, you know.
It's like sleep paralysis.
Yeah, because I'm sure that if I could have done, I would have screamed for my mum, you know. You know, you really would at that age, you know. But I do remember before coming back to my body, before I came out of what I presume must have been a craft of some sort. I do remember as I looked up and I could see these two beings, that these were different beings to the ones that were in my room. These were actually a lot taller, because at the height I could only see up to their waist sort of thing, their waist height. So I'm presuming that they were more of an adult size. But I do remember the sensation of feeling that I was in a queue of people to my right. And that basically, you know, I can only surmise that it was just my turn to go back, you know. Very strange. Very strange. Yeah. I mean, it's all there was. I remember nothing in between. I remember nothing between going and coming back. I don't know what went on in between. It's almost like there's a void of memory, you know, between the 2 points. It feels to me like there's something in between, but I just can't remember, you know. Because to be taken and then to be going straight back doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it?
There's got to be something in between. So how many times did this happen? I'm
going to say 5 or 6 times. I really can't tell you how many times, because I was so young, and it was just so difficult to get your head round. And because whenever my mum come into my room, it was basically, oh, well, first of all, and I said there are people come out of the wardrobe. She said, really? Like that? Did they really? She said, you were having nightmares. You know, I don't think the term night terrors even existed back then.
No.
It was just nightmares. And I swore, I used to swear blind to her that it wasn't nightmares, because even as a kid, you have dreams, you even have nightmares, but when you wake up, you remember little bits of it, don't you? And then the memories fade. This has stayed with me all my life, crystal clear. And so for a nightmare or a dream to stay that crystal clear, I don't think that really happens, does it?
Not that I know of.
No, sometimes yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you know how old you was the last time this happened?
No older than 5, I would have thought, because of the clothes I was in. Every time.
Yeah. So did it happen?
The very last. Sorry, I was just going to say, the very last time it happened, I actually got the feeling. I actually felt, even though how scary and basically petrifying it was.
Yeah.
I strangely got the feeling of rejection when, I don't know whether I mentioned this to you, but when the very last time it happened, that sound happened again. Like I was telling you about the whirring noise, magnetic sound. And it started to build up again, and then it just went all the way back down again to nothing. As if it felt like they didn't. I just felt a huge sense of weirdly. I felt like I was being rejected. It's like they didn't want me anymore.
That's strange.
It's strange.
Yeah,
but I remember feeling, it is weird, isn't it?
So what
strange.
time scale do you think it happened over? Was it weeks, months, years?
Not years, I wouldn't have thought. A few months. Right. It wasn't like every night or it wasn't. But I will say this, actually, something I forgot to mention before. I would be laying in bed, and there would be, and I'm not sure whether it was me and my imagination or not, but even though I was in a dark bedroom and the curtain shut, there would be a little bit of light coming in, I guess. But I did used to see the outline of a very, quite a short, sort of wide-ish man, dark. Right. And then I could call my mum. I shout my mum straight away. The moment my mum opened the door, there was nothing there. But it was almost like nowadays people term that as a shadow person.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought Shadow Man straight away as soon as you said that.
He didn't have any hat on or anything like you hear about nowadays.
That was my next question.
Yeah, it was just the outline of a shortish, wide, and I always thought it looked like the outline of an old man,
Right.
Probably like a trench coat or like a mat or something, People I've spoken to about that, who, like a lady where I walk the dogs, she says she's a spiritualist. She said, "Oh, that would be just a relative making sure you're okay, an old, like a deceased relative from the past."
Yeah.
And so, and funnily enough, that's when all of the other stuff finished. It kind of, bizarre.
Can I ask you, when they were coming out of the wardrobe, was there any type of light, or was it just that they came out of the wardrobe?
I don't remember that. All I remember is being fixed on these things and then being so scared and going. So I probably only saw them for like 2 or 3 seconds and then hid up. But my mum, I do remember her coming in because my mum died like 22 years ago now, and I just so wish I could ask her questions because she would remember,
Yeah.
I do remember my mum coming in like the next morning, or the next, few mornings, and said, "Have you seen any more lights or anything?" Or so it makes you wonder whether it was something I mentioned, but it's just that I just don't remember like now,
Yeah.
But I do remember her saying, "Have you seen any more lights?" Just quickly, I do have memories, and this will lead on to the next thing. I do have memories of being chased by a sphere when I was that age.
Yeah.
Whether this is something that happened when I was taken, or whether it was something from, again, nightmares. I don't know. But I remember wherever I went, this thing caught up with me. And I couldn't, wherever you went, it was within a bit, it would be there behind you, you know, and you'd have to go off again. You know, it was...
So it's like cat and mouse.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering whether, you know, if I'd have not been as scared as I was as a child, whether you were supposed to sort of like turn around and confront it. I don't know, you know, but because you're so young. Sorry?
Was it within the same age bracket, was it, when this happened as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all in the same, yeah.
I got one question. Do you remember what colour it was?
Yeah, it's the same colour as what I saw 20 or 30 years later.
This is why I was hoping you was going to say that.
Yeah, this is why I strongly suspect what happened to me when I was a kid is perfectly real, and that it's something that, as I said to you, Andy, yesterday or the day before, you know, since what happened, like what we're now going to lead into, since that happened, obviously I've had no option but to look into all of this and research it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there are different, like, I'm not saying that because I've never, but I've got 4 traits, one of them being genetic, well, all of them really being genetic traits that, well, if I put 3 of the traits together, would be blue eyes, being left-handed, and what was the other one now? Oh yeah, rhesus negative O blood.
Yeah.
That actually puts me in like 0.054% of the whole population. And then if you put into that also my other genetic disorder, genetic disorder, which is like an illness, a condition, that's the one.
Yeah.
With polycystic kidneys. If you put all those 4 together, that must actually put me in such a small percentage of people worldwide that, you know, it's only a hunch, but I feel that they have some kind of mechanism to pick out people who are just that little bit different and worth investigating.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, who knows? You know, we never really.
That might be why they picked you in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying the other day.
It's something that when I realised, which was not actually that long ago, that all 4, like the 3, so being negative O, rhesus negative O, left-handed with blue eyes, and that puts you in such a small group, and then you factor into that a genetic kidney disease, which is actually, you only get that polycystic kidneys if you do have a specific break in a very particular strand of your DNA.
So, when did you find out you had the I can't even say it. The kidney condition.
2002.
So,
me and my ex-girlfriend were thinking about starting a family, and we knew that the genetic fault was in my mother's side of the family.
Yeah.
Being her offspring, I've got like a 50-50 chance of having that fault.
Yeah.
And so I went to the hospital, had an ultrasound, and my kidney had all the dots and cysts on them. So he said, which obviously devastating at the time, you know.
Yeah.
But so I've known since 2002, but the actual, so you won't get any physical signs until you're into your 20s, you know, in terms of like any illnesses or anything, or any pain or discomfort. Never really shows itself until you're into your early 20s as a rule.
Right. Okay.
There is another form of polycystic kidneys that babies can have, but it literally kills them within a few weeks. You know,
Right.
I've got the more long-term version of it, if you like.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
No, the reason I asked that is because when you was being taken, obviously you didn't have this condition then, did you?
No, I would have never have known it. And no one I know would have known that I'd had it, you know. So,
Right.
but the thing, I would have still had the broken strand of DNA. It would have still been in my DNA.
Mm.
Yeah.
Or born with that DNA pattern, and I had the same break in the particular strand that my mum and my nana and my uncle had.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Interesting. Very
it is
interesting.
interesting because it helps me anyway pull things together a little bit better to get some kind of sense out of it.
Yeah.
It might be
So-
completely wrong, but
Yeah. So just going back a little bit. So when you said you got this feel of rejection,
yeah.
do you think that's because they'd found this condition on you?
Yeah, and I think that it was almost like they couldn't do. It felt like they couldn't do anything more with me, or it was like they just didn't need me anymore for some reason. And it's only now that I've kind of just put those sort of things together, if you like, and because you're always looking for answers, aren't you, for these things? And
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong. I'm probably wrong. And, you know, but to me, it would make some kind of sense, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. Do you want to carry on? I'll be back in 1 minute.
Yep. I'll have a cup of tea.
Yeah. So, when you said you could get a sense that there was more like using like a cue,
Yeah.
was it just a sense, or do you think it might have been that you may have seen it, but it's been suppressed? If you know what I mean?
I think possibly that. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was that. I think that. I also think that when I was being brought round, they're actually looking for your eye movement, because I couldn't move my body. All I could move was my eyes, and as soon as my eyes started going up, funnily enough, they thought, I get the impression that they thought it was quite amusing. I know this sounds really bizarre, but I had the feeling then that they were found it quite amusing watching you come back round almost, you know. It's totally bizarre. And I'm just glad it all finished when it did, in a way, like looking back now, because you know, there are people that get taken throughout their lives or go through that experience, whether it's being taken or not, who knows. But you know, I wouldn't want to be going to bed now as an adult expecting that to happen all the time, you know, or at any time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Very strange.
I've got one more question about that. Have you any idea who it was that was taking you, or where you was taken to? Any knowledge or anything?
None at all. None at all.
Right, just
nothing. I never saw. I didn't see any craft or anything. I didn't look out my window and see a UFO or anything like that. But I'm only presuming that I was in some sort of craft because of the sheer height that I fell, and I wasn't in my bed. You know, I was simply wasn't in.
Yeah. When you was falling, did you ever try and look up to see where you was falling from, or was you always looking down?
Yeah, you're looking down, because the moment, like I said, the moment you move, like I moved my eyes and I looked up these legs, two people standing next to each other. I say people, whatever they were. And as soon as my eyes sort of like were going up their body, as soon as it got to around the top of the legs, waist area, you're gone. So you really, and it's the actual sensation of going that you're not really thinking about anything apart from, well, you're just not thinking of anything. It's I mean, going back to whether my, like, that noise, I feel strongly that they're not taking your entire body. I don't think they're taking, like with me, I know that there is different people's accounts of different types of abductions. I mean, some people are abducted broad daylight, aren't they, you know?
Yeah.
I can only presume that there's different types of people, or you know, whatever, are doing it, and they've got techniques for doing it, you know. If I was to come to any conclusion on that, I would say that they're taking your soul out of your body. I know that sounds really deep, but
That sounds proper
unless,
creepy. That.
yeah, well, unless they've got some ability to keep everybody in the house in bed and asleep, and that
Yeah.
like some parents will just come and check on their kid, won't they? You know, at any time of the
Yeah.
night. I mean, if they come in and your body's gone, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you mean there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like when you were taken, they've took
Yeah.
something from the inside of you and just left your shell.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. That's the only thing, because that's the only conclusion I can come to on that one. Yeah. No, I do strongly believe that you know, people can have out of body experiences. Your body will stay there, but this has forced me almost to believe in your soul being, so you're residing within this meat body almost. You know.
Yeah.
I've always believed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do.
It's
To be
just
honest.
a machine.
Yeah.
Next to the next stage.
Yeah. I mean, this is quite deep, isn't it? But and this is why my dad and everyone, all my family, they won't entertain this, because they just don't like going that deep on anything like this, you know.
I love this. I love.
Yeah.
Deeper you go, the better it is. Honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
But it just brings up more and more questions. The deeper down the rabbit hole.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It really is, and it's just so fascinating.
It is, really, isn't it? It is fascinating.
I mean, to be honest with you, since like the thing that we're now going to move on to, probably, I just can't watch television anymore. I find it so boring and mundane. It's almost like they talk to you like your children, almost. You know, nowadays on television. You know, they do, don't they?
Yeah, it's generations have changed though over the years.
Yeah. But it's like if the news comes on, if I'm watching TV and the news, like we're doing something, and we come back and the news is on, so switch over. Unless it's something like local and it's like quite interesting. If it's national news, turn it off. Don't want to know. Load of crap.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But
so really, this is the first time. This is the first time I've ever spoke to anybody. Really, I mean, because I walk my dogs every day, and you get to know people quite well when you walk the dogs who are doing the same thing. I have spoke to a few people and mentioned it to them. And the first thing, when we move on to the next bit, the first thing they said was, "Oh, do you have any missing time?" So it's actually something that a lot of people who are aware of is a thing associated with it, you know.
Do you not think that they have, but they're too scared to say anything to you?
Possibly, yeah.
The walkers.
The reason to open this now is that that I've just gotten so sick and tired of keeping it with it, just keeping stum about it, you know. And also, if I come out, you know, if I tell my story as honestly as it happened, that might actually sort of like inspire other people to do the same. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Because
it is getting more and more open nowadays, though. I've found. More and more people are coming forward with their stories.
It's still difficult, I think. It's like Deb always said to me, it's when I started and she was saying about me putting my name to it, that's why I always ask if you want to give your name. Because there's so many people, they'll tell the story, but they don't want to be named because they're ridiculed. And it's like, well, I know what happened to me. Whether anyone believes me or not, then that's down to them. I know what happened. I was there. It happened to me.
Yeah.
They're going to see my face. Some people are going to know who I am. A lot of people are not. But I don't care. It happened to me, and that's it. So.
Yeah.
End of.
I've actually, the last few, let me think. Just before Christmas, actually, one of my friends who I used to knock about with when we were on motorbikes, I just started talking to him. I just came out with it. I goes, mate, I need to tell you something that happened to me. And he didn't dismiss it, and he wasn't off about it, or he wasn't sort of mickey taken about it. You know, I think people have, and it may well be the programming that, you know, you see a lot more films, but, you know, over the years we've been slowly getting more films about that kind of subject.
Plus documentaries as well.
Yeah. Well, me and Alan was talking about this today.
Yeah, it's getting more and more open nowadays.
Yeah.
Open to the public, I mean.
Yeah,
and also the footage, like things like the footage from those US fighter jets, the little
yeah.
TikTok thing.
The
I mean,
F-18s. Yeah.
yeah, for them to release that and for them it to be on mainstream news,
Yeah.
that's showing that they are trying to tell you something, in my opinion.
20 years ago, that had never happened.
It wouldn't,
never
would it?
been shown.
one of my favourite. Sorry, I was just going to say before we move on, one of my favourite sayings: "Hidden in plain sight."
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's what it is.
And also, they do things sort of like they'll tell you something, and then they'll just sort of like, how can they put it? They'll semi-dismiss it at the very end, almost.
Oh yeah.
Try and say something which sort of semi-poos it. But does that make sense? Like,
yeah, like they'll talk about something, and then they'll like a quick Mickey take, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah. But I will say that, like through my research, I found lots of old footage. There are one or two channels like on YouTube that have put up stuff that has been on VHS, and if you dig, you will find actual photos from the 40s.
Oh yeah, I've seen them.
Loads on there.
Have you seen the 1940s?
I live on YouTube, so I've seen.
I'm just going to say it. Alan lives on YouTube.
Yeah, honestly.
Have you seen the pictures of the German UFOs?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah. I seen them years ago.
Yeah, they can't be faked, can they? You know, not back then.
The Germans were more into it than what people think.
And there's actual footage of them flying, well, hovering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so much flying. They're on like
testing it, basically.
Yeah. But they're working. And they reckon that is
were
reversed engineering.
Way in advance back then.
Yeah, engineered.
Reversed engineered, isn't it?
So the Foo Fighters that we call, like, you know, those yellow flying balls that used to intercept the bomber groups, are like Allied bomber groups. They used to come in, whereas the news here said that these things used to come and fly with our bomber groups. No, apparently they used to wreak havoc throughout the bomber groups and shut down engines, shut down electrics. Yeah, and in German, they were called Kubler Blitz. They were called Kubler Blitz, these balls. Right. And apparently they used to hover above German airfields waiting for the bombers to come. You know.
That sounds a very German name, that does.
Oh, yeah, that's what... Yeah, and the bigger ones were called Honeybergs, which, again, very German, Honeyberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I have lived on YouTube for the last 5 years, mate. Trust me. Every single day. I don't have my normal TV on. It's all YouTube. Honestly.
Nah.
The last 5 years, I have gone through UFO sightings, aliens, Dogman, Bigfoot, the Rake. You name it, I've gone through it. Honestly.
Sorry, I keep disappearing. The kids are messing about out the back, and I've got to keep telling them to be quiet.
You got to change your nappy, your colostomy bag.
Not mine. It's the kids. So sorry. Anyway, sorry about that. So do you want to move on to what happened after that?
Yeah. Well, this is a big gap going all the way forwards to 2015. Had lots of bizarre incidents in between, but really this one sort of like, particularly where it happened, because I live quite local, only like about a bit less than 20 miles away from Rendlesham Forest of all places. So basically, I bought myself a little 4x4 Jimny, Suzuki Jimny, and met up a few others with them as well, you know, and we used to go on convoy, exploring all these byways and stuff, you know, going off road. And we kept at the end of every night, we used to end up at Rendlesham down this byway, which takes you to the north gate, halfway along the airfield of RAF Woodbridge. So, the first time I'd been there, I wasn't even aware of where I was. I knew I was in Rendlesham Forest, but I didn't really know, you know,
The exact
that was it. But anyway, yeah. So the next few weeks, or months, I should say, we kept going back there, and I thought to myself, well, this is a good place to bring me dog. So I used to go up there with my dog, walk him and that. And to well, I might as well go into this. My friend split up with his ex, so he was in a bad way and that. So to take him off the subject, we went to Wales, climbed Snowdon, came back. A couple of days later, he phoned me up and said, I'm bored. Do you fancy going for a walk? And I said, yeah, why not? We'll go up the forest. So I went and picked him up. We drove to the forest. As we were going along the byway, as we were going along the main road, then indicating to turn down the byway, I said to my friend, wouldn't it be good to see some lights tonight? And this actually, well, I'll carry on. As we turned down the lane, everything was normal. The byway is getting on for a mile long, so you're well away from any roads. There were no other cars parked down there. We didn't see anybody through the whole night. So we were alone in that forest, in that end of the forest. And so we started walking the dog, and we were sort of like, I reckon only after about 5 minutes, we kept hearing these, like, it was not a boom as such. It was like something, like, it was like it was like a crack. We kept hearing these loud cracks.
Like soft boots.
Yeah, but it was the airfield was, well, the airfield's not used as an airfield anyway. All you've got there is the Royal Engineers are stationed there, and they take up like a very small section of the airfield. We've heard gunfire there before. It wasn't that, like on the shooting range and that. We've heard other stuff. It's active in other ways, but these were like noises that you couldn't say where they came from. It sounded like they were just all around, the noise was everywhere, sort of thing, and that must have happened throughout the walk 10 or 15 times, to the point where we'd actually started to ignore it, so at one point during the walk, my lurcher, so we see deer up there a lot, and when you see deer or you hear them, as soon as you shine a torch on a deer, they'll look at you and then they'll run off, as a rule. And my dog, being a hunting type dog, if he saw a deer or sensed a deer or anything like that, he'd go dead quiet and still, and he'd like think, right, this could be game for me, sort of thing. If that makes sense. He would go in hunt mode. But this time we heard running not that far in front of us. We shone our torches, couldn't see anything, and my dog went up on his back legs, which is just the only time he's ever done it. He went up onto his back legs, and he was barking like a proper guard dog would bark, but he was only a lurcher, a greyhound type dog.
Yeah.
Which totally out of character for him. And which I said to my mate, this is not how he normally behaves. So already we've had one or two little incidents with the noises, something moving quick in front of us, and my dog acting like he was either scared. I think he was acting in a scared way, as if to say, don't come near me, sort of thing.
Yeah. So that thing that was moving, was it on the ground moving or in the air? Do you know?
On the ground. Whatever this was on the ground. Yeah.
Right.
But we couldn't see what it was. In fact, at that point, because all we had was our just like normal head torch type lights, it was just enough really to see in front of us and to maybe show up maybe 30 meters in front.
Yeah.
We didn't have anything powerful with us. We just had enough light to see what we were doing. So we carried on our walk. We probably got to the far end of the airfield, poured a cup of tea out of the flask and that, had a bit of a break, and then made our way back. And then we got back to the airfield is about 2 to 2.5 miles long, so it's a decent stop, Probably done sort of 4 to 5 miles. We got back to the car, and my car was facing RAF Woodbridge's Northgate fence, so in front of us was the whole airfield. We got in the car. We stayed there for about 10, 15 minutes. Probably had another. We did have another cup of tea and that. And my mate Alex said, and my mate said, right, we better do one because it's getting late. Let's get going. And I said, yeah, we'll do that. And so I needed a wee. I got out, had a wee, and as I was standing there, obviously I had my back to my car and my mate. I looked down the byway with my torch on my head, and there was like a grey, very dark grey. I just called it a mist. It was like a form that was separate from everything else around it. And then just below it or in front of it, there were two sets, like so low down, probably only maybe a foot off the ground, no more than that. There were two sets of amber eyes. My head torch was shining them straight up, just looking straight at me. And I said to my mate, okay, there's something down there looking at me like that. And he went, oh, is there? Like, he wasn't, because he was facing the opposite direction. He didn't see that at all. And I just sort of like shrugged my shoulders sort of thing, you know, strangely. And turned to get back in my car. And then as I leant into my car before I got in sort of thing, just probably, and so I was like this. And I went in just to sort the dog out, make sure the dog was comfortable. And as I looked up and looked out the back window of my car, there were just what I presumed were like headlights coming down the byway. Yeah. And they were moving because it's an even track, 4x4 track sort of thing. They were kind of moving as if it would be a 4x4. So I said to my mate, right, something coming down here. Should we get going? We'll get going. So I got in, turned the Jeep round. And as we were heading towards them, I'd say they were a good 100 meters away when I first twigged them. We were driving towards them and we were looking, as you do, because that's the only light in the area, you were just looking at them. And as we got to about 20 meters away, it was around that sort of distance, we both at the same time realized that they weren't attached to no car. You know, these things were just floating around 2 foot off the ground. And as we would sort of like gawping at them, the one on the left closed in on itself down to like a little strand of electricity or plasma, whatever you want to call it, and then gone. And then the one on the right, as we were looking at it, followed suit, but it just went boom. It's done it so much quicker than the other one did. And so we rolled, kept the Jeep moving, and we rolled into the exact spot where these things were. We got our torches and just had a little look around, and there was nothing to be seen, you know. And then because I didn't, you know, I just thought, we both come to the initial conclusion that, we must have seen a ghost or something, because it was on the byway. Yeah. They were the sort of colour you would say was like a very sort of pale yellow, a dim yellow. Yeah. That you could maybe say, well, it was very similar to the old sort of 6-volt power system that you'd have like on an old Willys Jeep, the old American Jeeps, you know. Yeah. Now we run 12 volts, which is much more bright, brighter light, isn't it? These were dim, and so he thought there was a ghost. It was like some kind of, I don't know. He thought it was something to do with the old base, or he was going along that line. So it was getting late, so we just drove, and as we were driving along the byway, I remember looking off to my right, and I just said, we didn't build the pyramids randomly. I mean, I've never ever studied the pyramids or even really given that much thought. But it came into my head. It just came into my head. I just said, there's no way we built the pyramids, or we didn't. It was along those lines, you know. That's what I said. And
that's a bit random.
It's random. It is random. But again, I've looked into this again, and the amount of times people have had sightings and they're then go and buy tickets to go to the pyramids. It's bizarre, but quite a lot of people that have sightings all of a sudden become fascinated with the Giza Plateau, which, why, you know, is there why is there a link, you know? But even to this day, I'm absolutely convinced he didn't build them, you know. I don't know why I think that, but
something was put there for you to think it.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I would never have come out. I can't see why I would have come out with that. You know, it's not the first thing.
Not the sort
of too random.
Said.
Yeah, it was very random. I mean, even more random was the fact that I said before we got there at the start of the night, wouldn't it be good to see some lights? I mean, we've been up there loads of times and never seen any. You know.
Yeah.
It was a bizarre night all round, I would say.
It's a way of not.
I'm going to try that trick.
Well, whatever.
I go out next. Wouldn't it be good if we saw some lights? Hopefully, things might happen.
I say that every day and don't say anything.
But do you say it outward verbally like that? Do you? Because there are people out there.
Yeah,
that say,
even sat in the van on my own, I'll still
saying that. I had a similar. It was nowhere near as spectacular as yours, but. Andy, you remember my last night investigation, which was in November.
It can.
Natalia and Pete came with us.
Yes.
Yeah. When I said, because we all met at the German cemetery place up Cannock, and there was a few others. There was Richard, and there was a guy called Mark who used to live in his van.
Right.
And we had a walk around the German cemetery area and all that. And then then we came back to the car park and we had a drink and that and, you know, having a chat. And I says, right, let's go up to the Punch Bowl car park, which was at the north of the Cannock. Yeah? Of the Chase, shall I say.
Right.
And I just had this feeling we'd get something happening.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we did. We had vocals.
Really, yeah. Yeah. What, growls?
Growls, whoops, all sorts. We could hear them communicating with each other.
Yeah,
It was about, I don't know, there was at least half a dozen of them.
Yeah.
There was up to the right, we could hear them down to the left.
Yeah. I've heard footage recorded in from Northern California of that sort of whoops, growls.
Yeah, it's
so wood knocks as
very
well.
distinct. There's nothing else that can. I mean, you can. There's probably people that can make that sort of sound, but the chances.
Yeah.
It's not the sort of place people go.
Probably slim.
But the people wouldn't go there just to do that.
Well, no, they wouldn't, would they? It's like it'd be a random thing for somebody to do.
Yeah, not on the off chance that there might just be someone there to hear it. You know, it's
exactly. Yeah.
99% of the time,
they'd have to know we were going to go there, and they'd have to know why we were going there.
Yeah.
But I knew something was going to happen because there was no deer around whatsoever. They'd all gone, and I knew they should have still been there.
Yeah, that is a good sign.
I went a week later, and all the deer were there. Yeah. So I knew the deer. So I knew something was around. But anyway, let's go back to your story.
Yeah, no, I mean...
Sorry about that.
No, you're all right, mate. That's fine. Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, on the Rendlesham thing, I mean, the weirdest thing is that I remember as a kid when I was very small when we lived up Vauxhall Road. I remember the day when it all came out about the Rendlesham thing on our local radio.
Yeah.
I don't know how old I was, 1987. I think it came out in like 82. They actually played.
It was early 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember hearing
same age.
Colonel Holt. I remember hearing Colonel Holt's recording, which you hear now whenever you can find it, probably in several places. But I gave it some interest, and even as a kid, I couldn't dismiss it. Obviously, you know. But the weird thing is, like, because you're young, you believe what your mum says, don't you? You know, you believe your parents. When with the what I would class as an abduction thing, I just assumed that these were dreams and nightmares that everybody would have, you know. As a kid, got no reference point. But going back to that, I would just say that, like at my age of 4 or 5, I was only watching Jack and Nori and Mickey Mouse cartoons and stuff like that. There's no way I would have had the scope of knowledge to have just woken up and made all that up. I mean,
yeah,
it's just so far out there for someone that age. to even you've not got the tools.
No,
you've not got the visual experience.
You've not got the knowledge or anything of it.
No, you haven't. And so again, that's another factor that convinces me it was real, because plus there wasn't the science fiction around as much then, was there? And parents never let kids of 4 then back then watch stuff like that anyway, did they? Really?
No.
I think anyway.
Well, this has got to be one of the most fascinating things I've ever heard, and to actually talk to someone that's had the experience.
I've always been embarrassed. Yeah.
Have you?
You should never be embarrassed about it. Never.
Well, I think a little bit of it, and I don't blame my dad in that, but he just won't. He would never has tolerated me talking about it, and it's just. I mean, it could just be that if I was being taken out of my room, they just felt so powerless to be able to stop it that they just don't want to go there. They don't want to think about it, you know.
Yeah.
Which I can't blame.
Well, I was going to say to you, has he said why he doesn't want to?
No.
Talk about
and this is that is quite interesting, but he really hasn't. He just says that and he'll just carry on watching telly, you know.
Yeah.
It's
like
he just won't.
Easier to not talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that's how a lot of people are like that of an older generation as well. You know. Yeah.
I think my dad would be the same, but
I do vaguely remember my mum saying that there were reports of what she called a fireball or a thunderball or a thunderbolt.
Yeah.
Going down our road, which was in Ipswich on Foxhall Road, you know.
Yeah.
At house rooftop height, she remembers that. But if you think about thunderbolts or fireballs, they're not a common occurrence. I've never seen one. I've never seen one. So it could just be that that's the terminology that people were using back then for these things, you know. Yeah.
Well, that's it. You can only describe what you've seen.
Yeah.
But if you have no knowledge of something, it's going to be, to me, it's going to be difficult to describe something if you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So it's not like
you're just going to use reference.
You're not going to make
you've got inside your head.
Yeah, you're not going to make stuff up just for the sake of it. That's how I see it. So yeah, it's like Alan just said. It's whatever references you've got in your head. That's all you can use.
You can go by, really, yeah.
And also, as a child, you've got such limited vocabulary as a 4-year. You know, you haven't got basic vocabulary enough to get by on, and it's only when you get to school that you learn, you know, the full complement of words to use, isn't it, to explain stuff.
Well, I don't think mine's changed much from then. To be honest with you,
I think mine's got worse.
I
was considered a bright lad at school. I'm not anymore.
Yeah. Not just me, then. No, it's just so fascinating.
It's a weird
to me,
one.
more for me is the fact that it's Rendlesham. Because since I heard about what happened in like the early 80s, it's always been one of them things. But there's never been any other reports or anything there that's gone public. I've heard of.
I want to look for a lady called Brenda Butler on YouTube. Have you heard of her?
Did you say?
Write down Brenda Butler. She's a good old country girl, and she was one of. You see, there are some local investigators. So basically, what you're going to find on YouTube mostly is people who have either got a book to sell about Rendlesham, or trying to poo-poo the whole thing. If you look for Brenda Butler, she was basically on the scene very near to when it happened, if not at the time, you know, not on the night, but she lived very local at the time.
Within hours.
She also had sightings when she was a child.
Right.
Of actually grounded of an actual UFO.
Yeah.
Like saucer type craft. The whole Rendlesham thing, I believe, because of the presence of nuclear weapons that shouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
I believe that the story has been jumbled purposely, almost, you know, by the airmen that were there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've actually found a map drawn by people at the time, possibly even the airmen, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
of where this was actually something that really hit me, it stunned me when I found this out. Where we park on the byway up the North Gate,
Yeah.
I found a map of a landing site where a craft was supposedly captured.
Oh, right.
On the first night of the landings, that 1980.
Yeah, because it's over a 3-day period, wasn't it?
That's it. And for
Did
that
you
to be
recognise
happening,
the area on that map?
yeah, it was literally to the right of where we park every time. Like literally, like.
So you could probably take somebody there now.
You could show someone.
Yeah. I could show you there. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic!
I know.
I mean, the stuff there is
Goosebumps.
already growing. Stuff is growing there. I mean,
Yeah.
I've looked there myself, and it looks normal. It looks normal, but I mean that would make perfect sense that you set up a decoy area where you send people.
Yeah.
Actually,
Well,
really
you sort out the real stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To stop
Um,
reporters, to
I'll
stop
have to send you to some.
around.
Say that
Yeah.
again, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
No, it broke up.
Yeah.
Robert, what did you say then? You'll
Which
have to.
I can't remember. Oh yeah, I was going to say I'll send a link to a few bits and bobs on YouTube by some really good researchers. You don't really get much, they're not got huge sort of like following. But
No,
they're
that's
on
cool.
the ground.
Appreciate
They're
that.
on the ground and they genuinely interview the people who are local and have done the research, if you know what I mean, as opposed to people who are not from the area and really they've got. I mean, I think you'll find that interesting because you'll actually find, I've got.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think local research is better because people know the area, they know pretty much everything there is about it, and they're the best people to talk to.
Yeah.
I've always felt that on anything.
Another little thing about RF Woodbridge was that they used to keep C-130 aircraft there and Jolly Green Giant helicopters.
Yeah, I know the ones.
And they were specifically there because the airfield was long enough to take the space shuttle. If the space shuttle had to come down and not land in its designated airfields in America, if it had to come down on a different orbit, they designated RF Woodbridge because it was long enough and wide enough to take the shuttle. And so there is talk, and again, I'll try and find it, and I'll send you links somehow to these investigators.
Yeah, I'll send you my email address after this.
Yeah, because what happened was a few days before the Rendlesham incident, all the local fishermen who go out to sea off of the airfield runs in an east-west sort of direction,
right?
Pretty much east-west, and the North Sea is, like I say, 2 to 3 miles away.
Yeah.
And there was an exclusion zone out at sea for basically the fishermen were paid not to go fishing for those days, and so that sea was empty. So it could just be that they were, I don't know, but it could be that they were landing the space shuttle, or something was coming down from space that they knew of, and they wanted to be able to retrieve it, and they didn't want anyone seeing it or any boats getting hit by it, or And I know that there was Brenda Butler and the others were saying that there was either a couple of Royal Navy ships out there and some US Navy ships out there as well. So there's a concoction. There's a all of these factors kind of muddle the story, rather, But there's no denying stuff goes on out there, which is utterly weird. The balls were there, the balls of light were there. Before it was even planted up as a forest, it was heathland, dotted with the odd field, 400 or 500 years ago, farm workers, people working the fields would report these same lights, you know. So it's a phenomenon that's been going on for
forever, by the sounds of it.
Probably forever, you know. It's probably been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is absolutely fascinating. It really is.
Yeah.
It's so much more than what I thought there was going on.
Yeah.
And everything that's happened to you. Really do appreciate you coming on.
No problem. I'm just actually glad that I found somewhere that I feel quite comfortable talking to you chaps, because you know.
No, I appreciate that as well. But yeah, it's been great having you on. So thank you for joining us. Alan, have you got anything that you want to
add? Yeah. So when would you say everything stopped, or the majority of the things stopped?
What you mean, like? What you mean
to do with the airbase?
Oh, what you mean? How do you mean, like the events that happened there that night?
Yeah, yeah.
I really don't know. Well, I don't know, but all I can say is,
would it have been in the
several
90s,
of the guys,
do you think?
What do you mean? When did the airbase actually close as in the US airbase? Yeah, it would have been, I'm guessing, early 90s, because they used to fly A-10 tank busters out of there. You know, the aircraft, you know, the ones I mean?
Yeah, the Warthogs.
Yeah,
I know them.
Yeah, with the Brat cannon on it. Yeah.
They call them Warthogs as well.
No idea what you're talking about.
Names. I love anything military, me.
Yeah, well, I have to say, since all these different things, you know, I got flight radar. I was saying to you the other day, Andy, I got flight radar, and I've become like, well, I just know everything that's flying now, because I want to eliminate them, if you know what I mean, from any sightings that I do have, you know. And I've always got used to all the flight lines and the different sort of routes into Stansted from here and Luton, you know, and I've come in really handy like that. But yeah, they packed up in the early 90s, I guess, if I remember rightly. But I do remember as a kid being in the back garden, there would be A-10s fly over, you know, and they've got a very distinct howl to their engines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't actually heard any, to be honest with you. The only ones I get round by me, and this, I only had this 2 days ago. I had 4 F-35s, flying in formation, straight over from the east to the west.
Yeah.
And then 4 days ago, I had 2 Apache helicopters basically flying straight over.
Right, cool. Apaches, we get a lot of them here because RAF Watcham is not far. As the crow flies where I'm sitting, 5 or 6 miles away, maybe a little bit more. And yeah, we get them over here quite a bit. And we might talk about this another time, but I have got a little story about an Apache that turned up somewhere literally immediately after I spotted something rather bizarre as well. So
yeah, right.
Did I mention
that for next time, if that's all right?
Fine, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely part.
It's only because we're starting to run out of time now. Because
and
the longer it goes, it takes longer for me to edit it all. Recording it, it's just pain.
That's the bit that takes the longest, really, isn't it? The editing.
This is a quick bit. It's the editing, putting it all together, and then downloading it, and then sticking it on YouTube. But thank you so much for coming on and for the chats that we've been having in the week. It's just
that's no problem.
Amazing.
It's honestly, like I said, it's been good to have someone to speak to about it.
Yeah,
one other thing, Robert,
we're here anytime if you need to come.
One other thing, Robert, don't ever feel like
you're on your own.
You need to keep it in. Just tell people. You know, people are a lot more understanding now.
Even if you just write it down. That's what I started doing. I started writing stuff down, and I just felt better for doing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
some of the things that I've encountered just don't make any sense whatsoever to me. And the more I think about it, the less sense it makes.
Normal life doesn't make sense to me, mate. So, you know.
There is that.
It's...
Yeah. So thank you both for coming on. We're going to end it there and hope for the listeners to join us next time.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. And see you all.